All right. Welcome in. I am Matthew Bartlett, editor and director of The Roost, joined here with JP Heath. It is September 1st. It's September. That means football is here. Never forget that Rice started their season last year on October 24th. But we're here a month ahead of that to talk some Rice football. How you doing today, JP?
Man, you have no idea. I think I mentioned this to you at one practice. It's like this 2 years, first time we've done this in 2 years, having September football. It was the ultimate bummer not to have it last year. And it again, I didn't go to Rice, but it dawned on me today, like, wait a second. We had this in October last year. So it's just a new feeling. Once that calendar hit September 1, man, let's go. Let's bring it, man. Let's go.
Well, it's pretty crazy because by the time we got to the Middle Tennessee game last year, we were like, yeah, the game starts, it's October 24th, but, we might play, we might not play, we might never play. So, man, just the fact that there's pads popping on South Main again, it's a good thing.
Yeah, because I think we talked about this last year in a different forum. Like, we had 5 games, but it was 5 games, You didn't have the 12 and hopefully down the line a 13th and a 14th game like we've done in the past. So it was a season, but I've done some radio interviews this week, and it's like, yeah, it was what it was. It was a half season. So we selfishly, we felt cheated out of last year just not getting those game weeks, but inject it into my veins all at once. Give me football right now.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I'm just going to kind of set the stage for you guys. We're going to come at you weekly. We're going to, like the title says, Rice Football Preview Show. We're going to kind of give you an overview about the game ahead, that is, probably going to be played, hopefully, this season. And so that means this week we're here to talk about Arkansas. But since it is the first week, and since this is the first time that, I don't know, you and I have been on the air together and a while, it feels like we're going to talk a couple big picture things, a couple camp news before we get started, just to kind of ground us. So I think first thing up top, let's talk about the big storyline going around Rice right now, and that's the quarterback battle between Luke McCaffrey and Wiley Green. I know we've kind of talked about this on and off the air over the past couple months, but kind of what's your read on the situation, and what's your comfort level when you hear Mike Bloomgren say on Tuesday that 2 quarterbacks are going to trot out there against Arkansas?
Well, he could be factual. One could take 80% of the snaps, and we could see 2 series from the other guy. So in that, he would be correct. I would like to have one guy. The old adage goes, if you have 2 quarterbacks, you have none. I think for the moving this literal ball forward at times, like, you've got to have that one dude. Wiley possesses things that Luke does not, and Luke possesses things that Wiley does not. Together, hunky dory, let's all have a Merry Christmas. But I think in the long run, you've got to have that dude. Is Wiley more advanced at this stage? He might be because of his 4 years in the program. I asked Coach Bloomgren Monday night, which I'm sure you were listening to, Matthew, like, hey, what's going on? Paraphrasing there, unnecessary casual there. But that's when he said, hey, both quarterbacks are going to play. And he repeated it during our presser yesterday. So it doesn't surprise me that he would say that, because really, we're not dumb here. You're not going to announce, yep, I'm announcing this guy and this guy's going to do this, because that's giving it away to an opposition to give them 2 or 3 extra days to prepare. So I'm not saying it's subterfuge, but I'm saying that you gain nothing by saying Wiley Green's our guy. You gain nothing by saying Luke McCaffrey is the guy, hence to fourth. They're both going to play a lot this season, I think. And you've always got to have the other side of that coin is if you 2 quarterbacks, you have no quarterbacks. But at the same time, if you have that really solid backup, man, you're doing really well for yourself. And I think that's been an elevation in the program, that they have these 2 options right now, like we've waxed in the past about. They haven't always had this option. Your stat, you remind me, end on end. So many different quarterbacks, 7 quarterbacks the last 7 years, if it is Luke that does start the game. So I'd love to get to that time where, like Dreyfus Jackson was a few years ago, you can count on a guy for a next year and then a next year and a next year. But that's my 2 cents on it.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting, and we'll see, and something that, as Bloomgren has talked about Luke McCaffrey so far, I don't think I've heard a negative thing said about his ability as a football player. It's all been getting up to speed in the offense, and something to kind of keep in the back of our heads, if you will. He has 4 years of eligibility remaining. So, maybe out of the gate, because of what Wiley does and understands, he's the right option to get things going. But like you said, it's going to be hard to keep McCaffrey off the field for too long. So it's going to be interesting. Whatever the right combination is that scores points. Because I think going back to the past couple seasons, Rice has played what probably started. I don't think Wiley actually started last year. He came in, but so started at least two, a lot of times 3 quarterbacks in a season. So I think if we get down to playing 2 guys, that's an improvement. And like Bloomgren mentioned, if you can, he'd love to get to 1 if he can, but we'll see. So either way, I think we both feel better. I won't speak for you. I feel better with where the offense is now, just given the floor and the understanding of both of those guys. So that was probably the biggest offseason nugget on the offensive side of the ball. On the defensive side of the ball, kind of transition over a couple things. We've heard the stat about how good Rice was on defense last season, 12th ranked defense in the country, which is awesome. They lose Blaze Aldridge, transferred to Missouri. They lose to Braylon Carroll, who's going to be out for the season with an injury. But they get back Naeem Smith, and they get back George Nyakwal. So, we kind of, this has been a defensive first program for the past, you could argue the last 3 years probably, under Mike Bloomgren, and that's probably the part of the team I have the most confidence in going forward, even with those couple guys out. Does that kind of mirror your feelings?
Yeah, no doubt. And I knew it, but it was one of those things that the boss man tells you, you go, oh yeah, you're right about that. That's why you're in that chair and I'm over here in my chair. But losing Blaze, dude and a half times 10, we wish him the best of success in Missouri. But Myron Morris is no slouch. And you're also getting that back end George Nyakwal and then Naeem Smith, who will play regularly, but that depth on the defensive line too. I always said it. You probably heard me say it ad nauseum. If I'm starting, this would be an unwise decision if anybody ever put me in this decision. But if I'm starting an NFL team, college team, heck, building a high school roster, Bishop Sycamore style, right? I would give me defensive line, offensive line, a 1A, but you've got to have those nasty, metal-eating, punch you in the face, mean individuals. And they've developed that depth. I've heard rave reviews about Ikenna Inuchuku, defensive line. He's going to play a lot more with his hand on the ground. So, yeah, losing to Braylon Carroll is a big loss, but I think moving Elijah over to that spot, well, he'll be more on the ball. And I talked to Elijah about this off mic the other day. That's his more natural position. Cedric Calhoun, the defensive line coach, he's a dude. He's going to be in an NFL camp next year, and he had the chance to do that this offseason. So, yeah, losing Blaze, but that defensive line is so deep, and we might talk more about the secondary. That's probably my biggest concern on the team. They have a deep secondary, but it's not untested until you play Kendall Briles' offense. That'll be, hey, welcome. Here's your test. But, yeah, I am very happy about the defense, knock on this wooden table here.
Yeah, I think it's going to be particularly interesting. We'll dig into the pieces when we get to how we match up, or rather Rice matches up against Arkansas. But one last big picture kind of question I want to kind of run past you. I was looking earlier this week, The Athletic has been doing a series of prediction pieces regarding each conference and kind of looking at championship odds and whatnot. And if you look at, pretty much any publication has across the country has put Rice somewhere in the 5th or 6th spot in the West when it comes to, projecting how the season is going to go. Obviously, folks at South Maine feel like that's a bit too low. The Athletic had 6 different teams that they picked to win the conference, and Rice was one of those 6 teams, had as many votes as UTSA, which I think in the conference media poll was neck and neck with UAB. To go win it all. So kind of as you piece things together, I know you've seen a lot of Rice football over the past couple years. Where does this kind of team stack into that from a talent perspective? Because, from my eyes, it looks like the talent and all the pieces are kind of coming together at the right time for this team in 2021.
A lot there. And I want to camp out here a little bit, if you don't mind, because last year, I was watching practice. They look a lot bigger. You remember that first practice we actually got back together? It felt weird because games are already going on, and then they say, all right, all's clear. We can go back to practice. They look bigger. Like, they look faster. And then fast forward, 11 months or 10 months. Last month, told Nate, got the bullhorn. I was telling anybody that would listen in my masked up area there. They're really deep, and Coach Bloomgren's terminology and Alex Brown, director of recruiting, raising that floor. They're deep. It could be one of those teams where, like, and again, for those that don't know my thoughts in the past, wrinkle up any preseason poll and just throw it out. It means absolutely nothing. It's fun to get excited about. Sorry to crush your hopes and dreams if you are a fan of one of those teams that it serves as good motivation. And quite bluntly, I'd almost rather us be lower in the standings and able to prove the haters wrong, whatever the kids are saying these days, and then to be the one gunned for, because I don't think it's any doubt UAB, unless proven otherwise, they're the top dog. I can't wait to go there later in the season. UTSA's on the come up, but they haven't proven much. I mean, honestly, they had a good season last year in the wacky year that it was. So I think when we look back, it could be one of those, and I need to look at that Athletic article, but it could be one. Why didn't more people see this? Because across the board, offense, defense, special teams, trainers, everything is a lot deeper. And I haven't seen the talent like this, to answer one of your original points before my diatribe here, since the 14 team that went on, the 15 team, the 13 team that won the conference championship, then the Hawaii Bowl team later. So yeah, they've got more dudes. And we might circle back to this in a little bit, but it comes down to those explosive plays too. Like I read in your preview yesterday, pat you on the back virtually here. They have to have the explosive plays. And they know that. And Coach Toohey, I think that's the number one. I think I've listed 15 number one variables coming in, but they've got to have that explosive playability. And that's why I think Marcus Tuiasosopo will come in and do, whether it's with 80% of Wiley Green or whether it's 80% of the snaps with Luke McCaffrey.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting you mentioned throw the media polls up. Maybe we don't know anything. That's very possible. But the people who do know stuff, the people who built those hotels out in the desert in Vegas, I think it's interesting. If you go look at the odds makers and what people that are putting money on the line think about this, Rice is anywhere between the 4th to the 6th best odds to win Conference USA, which is very, very different from a team that's being picked by the media, schlubs like us, to go finish 12th, 13th, something like that. And I think it's interesting, UTSA, Louisiana Tech, they both got votes in that Athletic article. Obviously, UAB is the incumbent. But if you think about the perfect storm, so to speak, with COVID and everything that it has done to the depth throughout college football, Rice loses a couple pieces, but for the most part is returning all of their key players, or the vast majority on both sides of the ball. UAB lost a good amount, and so it's kind of maybe not evening the playing field. Like, you got to give Bill Clark his due. He has brought the program from the dust.
Tremendous coach, amazing,
right? So you got to put them up front, but it could be anybody's game. And I think what's interesting with Conference USA, and I don't know if I said this to you or somebody, but it's my favorite line that Skip Holtz uttered during media days in 2019. He said, Conference USA is a lot like NASCAR. Everybody's got the same engine. It just comes down to who drives it better on any given Saturday.
There you go. I like that.
And I thought that was so true, because you talk about the talent gap. I mean, sorry, UTEP, but the talent gap maybe from Rice up to UAB, it's not that big. And if you get a transcendent player or a special player on either side of the ball, like Blaze Aldridge was for this team in years past, things could get interesting. I think that's the hope.
Yeah, let's not kid ourselves. A lot of it comes down to the quarterback, because, again, with that bullhorn to you and others around me, when Mike Collins was clicking last year, I turned to Nate in the booth, like, take off my headset. Are you seeing this? The Southern Miss throw where he dropped that in the bucket on the other end. I wish I had a gif of my react. I was floored. I could not get over that, how he just dropped those Trammell. I mean, great receiver on the other end too. But my long-winded point of being that, hey, I don't think we have a time limit here, do we? That throw, like, he was that dude. And again, all the best to Mike Collins in the future. If he doesn't get hurt last year, you're looking at a team that could win 4 of their 5 games that were played last year. And we do go bowling. But it's obviously not his fault he got hurt, but that's how much of a difference when you have that dude at QB1, whether this year it's Wiley or whether this year it's Luke, that makes the difference. I feel like you're saying something and I'm answering 9 other questions at once. I'm so excited to do this, but amplifying how pumped up I am.
I think it's right. And so let's jump in. We've camped out on quarterback a little bit. So let's turn our attention to Arkansas, and I think what is probably most notable, it's going to come down, like you said, it's going to start with the Rice quarterback situation and the Rice offense, because I feel like that's the unit that has the most to prove from what we've seen in years past, matching up against a Barry Odom defense. And I think maybe the casual fan doesn't go through and mull the list of defense coordinators that their team is going to face, but as far as the folks, the defensive coordinators and the defenses that are on Rice's schedule, Barry Odom is got to be one of the best. I mean, he wasn't picked to be a head coach in the SEC a couple years ago for no reason. So what's kind of your read from what the look ahead you've done at the Arkansas defense, and how challenging is it going to be for the Rice offense to get going?
Well, first off, I'm looking at Bordy, my name from my chart, and I wanted to share it. I should have asked David pregame here if I could share it, but so when I look like I'm staring off into the distance, that's what I'm looking at, because I know how big a fan you are of Bordy there, Matthew. But
Bordy's the best.
I love Bordy, and she's pretty bare bones still. I have my process, trust the process each day, but Catalan, he's that guy. I talked to on the offensive side. I talked to Mike Kershaw, I guess it was last week. Hey, just give me a little nugget on Arkansas, and it was Catalan, number 1, the safety, Dallas area, Fort Worth area kid. He's NFL, so he's that apex predator there in the defensive backfield. And Morgan, of course, all SEC on the defensive side. He's the other alpha there on that defensive side, and they've got a couple Missouri transfers on the defensive line, number 0, Utsi, and Williams, a defensive end. But I'm not going to sit here. I'll leave it to Nate, for those that haven't listened before. He's the X's and O's dude, but I look at girth and size, and they've got a couple of those 3 Bills guys across the front and the middle in Ridgeway and Utsi. But, I mean, I don't know the difference that Barry Odom has made in this. I'm not going to just rant on that because I don't know it, but having a stud like Catalan, a stud like Morgan, they're going to be okay. And they won 3 games in the SEC last year in Coach Pittman's first year for a reason. So they won't be a slouch. It'll be a great test early on for Coach Tui to see what he can do and the new weapons that Rice has too, because I consider Rosner a new weapon that they have to stretch that defense. And can the running game get going from the stable of running backs the Owls have? So obviously it starts with running the ball like it always does, converting on third downs, blah, 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 the stationary, the regular customary stuff, but going deep. Can Rosner, big time player, he's that dude. Can he make a difference in a matchup against Catalan and a talented secondary?
Yeah, the battle between Jalen Catalan and Brad Rosner, that's something that I have circled as an X factor for that game. You know, Rosner has been that guy. I think back, it was the North Texas game in 2019 when they were trying to run the clock up. Rice was to win the game, and they just threw a 30-yard bomb to Brad Rosner backed up into their own end zone. That's the level of trust that this offense and Mike Bloomgren has in Brad Rosner to go up and get it. And so we talk big plays. I think he's going to be huge. They are not going to be afraid to give him opportunities just to go beat a guy. And if you can beat Jalen Catalan, like you mentioned, he was a preseason All-American in some places. So he's going to be huge. And then the other thing that I'm really interested to watch, and this is something that, Arkansas hasn't done well the past couple years, really dating back to the previous coaching staff. It's been they're playing the trenches and the defensive line, getting pressure on the quarterback. It's been a work in progress for Rice too, but particularly for Arkansas, if you play in the SEC and you can't win in the trenches, that's a problem, as they found out. And that's going to be interesting how they match up with the Rice offensive line, because Cole Garcia being reinserted this year at the guard spot after starting as a freshman. You basically have the same faces that played last year, and down the stretch kind of averaged 2.5 yards per carry on the ground or somewhere about that. So that's going to be really interesting, because if this offense, as Sam Pittman said this week, wants to play bully ball, and if they can set up a lot of stuff to Rosner, if they can win on the ground. And that's something that I'm going to be most interested to see how that comes out the gate, because we're going to see a lot of Jordan Myers, a lot of Kalen Griffin, and a lot of runs trying to punch Arkansas in the gut.
Yes, twofold here. I want to give praise to you first off. What was this stat? I just read it yesterday or the day before in your preview about the explosive plays. Like the Rice average of plays, 30 yards per game, was like 1 point some odd, and how that matched up with Arkansas's defense. I wanted to give you proper coverage on that. If you're one of like 5 people that don't know what Matthew does, please read his stuff. He covers us better than anybody. That struck me. That I was like, yeah, that lines up with everything I have witnessed here in the past, how those big plays have waned. Yeah, sure.
To throw it out, Rice has averaged 1.3 plays of 30 yards or more per game last season. The Arkansas defense allowed 1.9 such explosive plays. So Rice didn't create many, and Arkansas didn't allow many.
And the back half of that is having Jake Bailey, who, again, I'm not the X's and O's guy, but will put himself in there along with what Trammell was doing. I know some concepts will be different and it won't be exactly the same. And you shouldn't say, oh, Jake Bailey, go be Austin Trammell. There's only one sheriff, But I dig Bailey. Bailey has that like he can come after you on an offensive side. But then my I don't know, star. I don't want to say you think I'm the word guy. I can generate a better word than this, but my favorite guy on the offensive side, and can't, because I knew Rosner. We saw Rosner. I've seen Myers. I've seen Griffin. I know what Juma can do. Ari Broussard, he's looked good, but Cedric Patterson, having him there as that extra guy, like, okay. Again, referencing my talk with wide receivers boss Mike Kershaw, phenomenal human being. I can't wait till people get to meet Trey Patterson. Crosby kid, goes to New Mexico. He told me he had like an offer from Army out of high school, Incarnate Word, couple others I'm forgetting at the moment. But I love what Cedric Patterson potentially can be. Not JP Scout, not JP. Again, a lot of qualifiers there, but they haven't had a guy like that in a while. Number 4, Cedric Patterson. I'm really looking forward to seeing him. He had chemistry. Both you and I saw him make big plays with Wiley, and when things would break down, when Luke would scramble around and do his thing, he could find. He had a good second half of the last scrimmage that they had. So I can't wait to see Cedric Patterson.
Yeah, and not weeding too far into the X's and O's like you said, but you can kind of tell when you're watching a guy, the comfort level that he has
Mhm.
with where he is and what he's doing. And he flashed a little bit. He had a couple good plays in the spring game, but during fall camp, he's just kind of looked like he knows where he is and what he's supposed to be doing. And that's been huge. For the offense, a lot of playmakers there. Andrew Mason has looked pretty good. C.J. McCord, older brother of Miles McCord, has looked good. We can go down a list of wide receivers this year as opposed to saying that, it's a guy who's left, which is nice. But I hat tip to Bloomgren. He did say explicitly that they're going to use Jake Bailey like they used Austin Trammell, and Trammell was a workhorse for this team. That was especially last year with Rosner out. But it's going to be interesting, which kind of brings us flipping to the other side. If there's optimism, and I think the hope there's a lot more pieces, and the insertion of Marquez Tuiasosopo to kind of hopefully put those together, we're interested in. But the defense, if we settle in there, it's going to come down to if we start at the quarterback for Arkansas, stopping KJ Jefferson. And Rice has had their moments in the past where mobile quarterbacks, like they do with a lot of defenses, have given them trouble. I think back to was it Jason Bean at North Texas broke off a 82-yard touchdown run or something like that on missed assignment. So KJ has got a little bit on his legs, but he's a big guy. He's not a slender skinny bean 180. He packs some punch. So what are your thoughts? How optimistic are you that the Rice front seven is going to be ready for that challenge?
Backing up, it's a lot to do with Briles. Having a Briles surname means going to play fast. I mean, you're getting the snap off in 10, 11 seconds. Coach Bloom talked about that roll-in of the defensive line yesterday in his presser with us. So I'm confident. Obviously not knowing everything. I told a radio guy in Arkansas this morning, I wouldn't be sitting here talking to you at 7:45 in the morning if I knew what was going to go on. But, I mean, they've got some all-SEC guys. Their center, Stromberg, Tulsa kid. He's preseason first team, all-SEC. Their left tackle cast a big shadow. Left guard, Brady Latham. He was all-SEC freshman. And the guy that had their most snaps was Cunningham, the left tackle. As far as skill guys, you mentioned Jefferson, and this will be his first home start. But when I talked to Brian Smith, the DC and linebackers boss, during practice a couple days ago, he singled out Burns, the wide receiver. And Burns or Burks? I'm blanking. I want to. Yeah, Burks. That did not sound right when I said that. And Bordy was wrong. That's why you correct Bordy during the week here.
Oh man.
But Burks, he said he is a phenomenal playmaker. So this is a Rice secondary. While they're deep, they're pretty young right now. They love the improvement of Jordan Dunbar, but at the same time, he's not listed at the top of the starting lineup for this week. But matching up against Burks and limiting those gash plays, limiting those 20 and 30-yard bursts. And it's not always the first and second one that hurts you. It's that third one that they just get that little sliver of space. How do you play in space? Coach Bloomgren says this all the time, but it starts with running the ball. Like if you remember the Baylor teams that Kendall's daddy had, it was this. I mean, a non-Rice weeks. The couple times I guess we played them one time without Coach Briles, but they spread you out to run the ball. The misconception is that Briles' offense is attack. Yeah, they will go for verticals, but it's going to be centered off running the football. And that's where a lot of my confidence is. They can stop that run and see if they can step up to that number 12 scoring defense like they were last year. This will be their best test since the beginning of last year.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. You mentioned Traelenberg, 6'3", 225, all SEC receiver. He's a big difference maker for Arkansas, especially when it comes to vertical threats. And that's interesting because, you mentioned Jordan Dunbar. He's their biggest probably corner at least from a size perspective. I guess he's officially lifted 5'11", 194. But we'll see who draws the straw and say you go cover him. But it's going to be interesting because the Rice defense, and especially given the space that Arkansas is going to play with, you got to win on the outside, and it's hard to win on the outside against someone that powerful. And you can win 8 times out of 10, but those 2 times you don't win, he can make you pay. And I think that's going to be huge for the defense here. And it's going to be interesting watching them. I think the point you made about being able to stop the run is going to be huge. And I think that's something Rice was and has been the past 2 years at least one of the best defenses in Conference USA against the run. And that hasn't been primarily because of a lot of exotic pressures. It's been trusting the guys up front, the Elijah Garcias, the DeBraylen Carrolls of past of plugging gaps in the middle and bringing guys down. So I think, Rice has the pieces, whether that's a Kenna or a Miles Adams coming off the edge. Trey Schumann is great against the run. We're going to see a lot of him on Saturday, a lot of pieces. And that's what it's going to come down to, because the better you're able to control the run with less bodies, you can do a lot more to protect yourself against the pass. Because if Rice is having to bring 6-7 guys against the run into the box, that's going to be trouble, and that's something Brian Smith does not want to do.
And one last name on the defense, young name, and we know about Nyquil, we know about Smith, we've already mentioned Dunbar, Sean Frosh, who is going to be a dynamo on special teams, but he is slated to get the start at right corner, according to the 2 Deep. So we've seen him do some kind of elbow bumping, kind of head turning things on special teams in the scrimmages and in the workouts at Waltrip. But Sean Frosh, young guy, he's freshman starting. That's a big deal. Austin kid out of LBJ.
Yeah, and I one quick note on him. I go through in the preseason preview magazine I put together every summer. I go pick a couple diamonds in the rough, a couple sleepers, guys that names might not know who are going to be big. Sean Frosh was at the top of my list. He actually started the Middle Tennessee game last year, his first game as a true freshman, and draw the start against Southern Miss before he got hurt and missed both the last season. So he's been running with the ones all camp. He's gonna hold down one of those corner spots. He's not as tall as Traelenberg, but man, he's fidgety, and he might give him fits, and I'd be interested to see how that shakes out. But yeah, I think that's all we got this week. We have a lot of Arkansas. We'll get. I don't even know who's next on the schedule. We'll get to there next week. Houston, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah, so you're going all coach on me, going game by game. Come on, man. We got the Southwest Conference Triumvirate starting now with Arkansas, U of H at home, and then at the state school in Austin there next week.
Yeah, not Southwestern. I put that in a piece earlier this week and was corrected. Different group of folks. But yeah, I want to. We'll close things out here. We will get to Houston. I promise you, folks. The school across town, as Mike Bloomgren refers to it. So
awesome.
But yeah, thank you everyone for sticking with us and following us around. Let us know. We can take comments and stuff. We'd love to chat with you as we go through and preview the teams coming up in the schedule. But we'll be here every week, Wednesday? I've lost all time during the pandemic. We'll talk to you then. But for now, I'm Matthew Bartlett. We got JP Heath, and we are signing off. See you next week.